Now that we are finished looking at medical careers, we are going to get into an overview of how living things are organized and a basic generalized look at the 11 major body systems. We're going to look at some of that today, and then tomorrow we will finish up, and that will get us through our third week of school. So here we have structural levels of organization. Hopefully you remember this from Anatomy 1 and Biology. The smallest level, so starting at the smallest level, we would have an atom. That's going to be the most basic unit of matter. When you have atoms bonded together, that's going to create molecules. Large molecules, so when those individual molecules bond together, they're going to form macromolecules. Those would be carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. Macromolecules can be combined to form organelles. Organelles are just a specialized structure in a cell. It's kind of like a mini organ in a cell. So like how our organs in our body will perform different functions for our body, organelles perform specific functions for the cell. And the cell is the most basic unit of life. So all of these levels leading up to a cell are considered non-living. And then once you get to the level of a cell, it would be considered alive at that point. When you have groups of cells that work together, that forms tissues. Tissues will be our first big topic once we get through our review items. So we're going to do the review of body systems, and then we also have a review to do from Anatomy 1 of anatomical directions and terms and things like that. Then tissues are going to be our first area of study. There are 4 types of tissue. You have connective tissue, epithelial tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. So we'll go through each of those as part of that unit. But when you have groups of tissues that work together to carry out a specific function, that's going to be considered an organ. And then organs working together to carry out a specific job for the body would be your organ systems. We, again, like I said earlier, have 4 major 11 organ systems. So we're just going to watch this short video quickly.
The human organism is comprised of 11 organ systems. These 11 systems are made up of groups, or organs that function closely together toward a common goal. These organs form a system. While the names of these systems may vary slightly among the medical community, their functionality and descriptions are the same. The integumentary system has the main functions of protection and temperature regulation. The muscular system assists in movement and support, and connects bones to one another as well. The skeletal system provides protection, structural support, and assists with movement and blood production. The nervous system is the communication network and center. The endocrine system assists the nervous system with communication through message delivery. The circulatory or cardiovascular system carries blood and nutrients throughout the body. The lymphatic system works to transport fluids and fats and defends the organism against disease. The respiratory system exchanges gases as well as filters and transports air. The digestive system breaks down food and nutrients for absorption and use. The excretory or urinary system is responsible for maintaining pH and balance of body fluids, as well as excretion of waste. The reproductive system gives the organism the ability to produce offspring.
Okay, so once we put those 11 organ systems together, that's going to make an organism, or in our case, that we are going to focus on, a human being, that's able to carry out all of the basic life processes. So just looking through one more time at those different levels, the most basic level, again, is an atom. Atoms get put together into molecules. Molecules get put together into larger macromolecules. Macromolecules can form organelles, all the parts of our cells. Those 4 levels, again, are considered non-living, but once you have organelles all put together, that forms a cell, and then you have the most basic unit of life. Next, we have tissues, groups of cells working together. Tissues get put together into organs, so common or tissues that carry out common functions would create organs. Organs that carry out common functions would create or be the level of an organ system. And then when we have all 11 of our major body systems together, that forms an organism. So what we're going to do after, or where we're going to go from here, I should say, is we're going to look at a few of those body systems today. We're going to start with the integumentary system. This is not one we really focus on in Anatomy 2. You should have focused on this in Anatomy 1. So your integumentary system mainly functions for protection. It also helps regulate different things in your body, such as your body temperature. For example, you would sweat from your sweat glands in your skin to help cool your body down. And then it also functions with sensation, so a feeling of touch. And the skin is our largest body organ. And so that is mainly what the integumentary system is your skin and all of the associated structures. We're going to take a minute and watch this short video about your skin so you can see some of the different parts.
The integumentary system, also known as the dermal system, is the largest system in the human body. It consists of structures that form the body's outer covering, and its functions include protection against the external environment, regulation of body temperature, regulation of hydration levels, sensory perception of touch, temperature, and pain, and synthesis of vitamin D. The major components of the integumentary system are the skin and the subcutaneous tissue. The skin consists of two layers. The epidermis, which is the superficial cellular layer of the skin, and the dermis, which is the deep connective tissue layer of the skin. The subcutaneous tissue, also known as the superficial fascia or hypodermis, is the connective tissue layer located immediately deep to the dermis, consisting of adipose tissue or fat.
All right, so our next system that we will look at is going to be the skeletal system. The skeletal system is something that we did learn in Anatomy 1. We will also cover it in Anatomy 2 this year. So your skeletal system is going to function for support, protection, helping form your blood cells, as well as mineral storage. It's going to include your bones. We have 206 bones in an adult human skeleton, and cartilage. That cartilage is going to be on the end of your bones to help prevent them from rubbing against each other to reduce friction. There are different types or kind of classifications of bones. Depends on their structure, what kind of bone they are, and then what they do. So you have flat bones. So your skull is made of several different bones. Those are considered flat bones. They're fairly thin. They help protect. So if you think of how your skull surrounds and protects your brain, the flat bone would help protect your or protect organs. Next, we have short bones. Those are relatively cubical in shape. You're going to find those in compact spaces. So in the wrist, your carpals are short bones, and your ankle, your tarsals are also short bones. The next category we have is a long bone. The name kind of tells you what it looks like. They are longer than they are wide. So an example would be the humerus in your upper arm would be a long bone. Sesamoid bones we have next. An example of that would be your patella. What classifies a sesamoid bone is that it is embedded within a tendon. So in your patella is within the patellar tendon that makes it fit into that category. And then lastly, we have irregular bones. They just kind of have an odd shape like your vertebrae that you see here in this picture. They don't fit into any other category, so they are considered, like their name says, irregular. We have different types of joints. A joint is going to be a point where two bones meet. We will go through the different kinds of joints when we cover the skeletal system this year. One type of joint are synovial joints. Their name comes from the fact that they have a fluid called synovial fluid inside of a capsule in that joint that helps to kind of lubricate and reduce friction. We have gliding joints. So if you look at this part of the diagram in the middle where it's showing the arrows, it's going to allow back and forth movements. One example would be between the clavicle and the upper part of the sternum. You have a gliding joint there. Next, we have a hinge joint. If you think of how a door opens and closes, it goes back and forth. We have those in our elbows, which is what's shown here. Your knees and ankles, those are all hinge joints. Next, we have pivot joints. That's going to allow a back and forth motion. We have that in between our first two vertebrae, the atlas and axis. So if you right now turn your head left and then turn it right, and then back to the center, that is the pivot joint there that's allowing that motion to happen. Next, we have an ellipsoid joint. It's also called a condylar joint. One place we have that is if you like crack your knuckles, right? Your knuckles there are that type of joint. A saddle joint we only have at the base of our thumb, so that's going to be a feature or a joint that's found in primates that give us the feature of an opposable thumb. And then finally we have a ball and socket joint that allows for the biggest range of motion. And we have that in our shoulders that you can see here. Also, our hips have ball and socket joints. Again, we just have a short video to kind of let you see some of these things.
The adult human skeleton is made up of 206 individual bones. These bones can be categorized into the medially located axial skeleton and the adjoining appendicular skeleton. The axial skeleton is made up of the skull, hyoid bone, vertebral column, sternum, and rib cage. The appendicular skeleton contains the bones that make up the upper and lower limbs. The bones of the skeleton are categorized into 5 separate groups based on their shape: long bones, short bones, flat bones, irregular bones, and sesamoid bones. Long bones have a tubular shaft and are found in the limbs such as the femur. Short bones are cuboidal and are found in the ankle and wrist, such as the capitate bone of the wrist. Flat bones are broad and sheet-like and include bones of the skull that surround the brain, such as the parietal bones. Irregular bones are groups of bones that do not fit into the long, short, or flat groups, such as the T6 thoracic vertebra. Sesamoid bones are a special group of bones that are found within tendons, such as the patella.
Alright, so there we have a little bit about the skeletal system. We're going to look at the muscular system now. The main function of the muscular system is movement. There's different types of muscle tissue. There's skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and smooth muscle. Typically, when you think of your muscular system, you're going to be thinking of your skeletal muscles. Those are going to be muscles that are attached to your skeleton that help us move our bodies from place to place. Cardiac muscle is found only in our heart. It also helps with movement because your heart pumps blood and moves your blood through your body. Finally, we have smooth muscle that's going to be found in the walls of your blood vessels and other hollow organs like your stomach, your intestines. That's going to help move things throughout your body. Here we have a look at the 3 types of muscle tissue. So you can see just kind of drawings up top of what they would look like. And down here you have what they would actually look like if you had a microscope slide of each type of tissue and you were looking at that. Just going to watch this short video again. To me, it's just easier to see things more than I can just explain it to you from pictures. So that is why I'm including these. So hopefully they are helpful.
Three types of muscles are contained within the human body: smooth, cardiac, and skeletal muscles. Smooth muscles are found in the walls of many organs, such as the stomach, and in blood vessels. They have a non-striated appearance and contract involuntarily. Cardiac muscles are found in the walls of the heart. They also contract involuntarily but have a striated appearance. Skeletal muscles are attached to and move bones. These muscles contract voluntarily and have a striated appearance. Skeletal muscles are subcategorized into 4 distinct groups based on the orientation and arrangement of their muscle fibers. Parallel skeletal muscles consist of fibers that are arranged in parallel to the line of pull during contraction. Parallel muscles can be subcategorized based on their shape into quadrilateral, strap-like, and fusiform. Convergent muscles contain fibers that have a wide origin but converge in order to attach to a narrow tendon. Circular skeletal muscles are made up of fibers that are arranged in a circular manner. They are found at points of openings where the contraction leads to a closure of that opening. Pinnate skeletal muscles consist of muscle fibers that are attached to the sides of a tendon in a manner that is similar to a feather. Pinnate muscles can be subcategorized based on their shape into unipinnate muscles, bipinnate, and multipinnate.
All right, so before we finish with the muscular system, something I should have mentioned earlier that was in the video is voluntary versus involuntary control. Your skeletal muscles are under voluntary control, meaning that you are thinking about moving them to get them to contract and work. For example, if you wanted to reach your hand out and pick up a pen to write something down, you are telling yourself to have certain muscles contract to allow that movement to happen. Smooth muscle and cardiac muscle are both under involuntary control. That means they are going to contract without you having to think about it. And it's really a good thing for us that they are under involuntary control, because otherwise you would need to also be thinking about your heart contracting for your heart to beat. You would need to think about what you ate for breakfast yesterday moving through your intestines. So those things happen under involuntary control without us having to think about them contracting for their actions to happen. All right, next we are going to look at our digestive system. This is something you should have learned in Anatomy 1, and we don't really spend too much time focusing on it in Anatomy 2. We will cover it a little bit when we do the cat dissection in May, but for now we're just going to do a general overview. So there are different functions of digestion. So you have mechanical digestion. That includes you physically chewing your food to break it down into smaller pieces. Chemical digestion, which is when enzymes are going to be secreted for further breakdown of your food. And then absorption, getting the nutrients from your digested food into your body for you to be able to use. It needs to go from your digestive system into your blood and your circulatory system. With the functions, again, mechanical is a physical breakdown of food. Chemical would be a chemical breakdown of food. That's really the main difference. They're both getting food into smaller pieces so that they can be absorbed. What is included in your digestive system is the digestive tract. It's also called the GI tract or gastrointestinal tract. And then you also have accessory organs of your digestive system. So the GI tract is a long tube from your mouth all the way through down the esophagus, the stomach, small and large intestine, rectum, and then out through the anus. That long tube makes up your GI tract. There are accessory organs that help out the digestive process. Those are actually not shown for the most part in this diagram. Your teeth, tongue, and salivary glands would be accessory organs. They're going to help begin the digestion process when you put food into your mouth. The liver and gallbladder and pancreas are also not shown here, but they will help with digestion as well. So again, there's basically 4 stages to digestion. You putting food into your mouth, is going to be the process of ingestion. And then there's both mechanical and chemical digestion. You are going to physically break food down into smaller pieces when you chew it. And then also when your stomach, which has smooth muscle in its walls, helps to physically break that food down when your stomach churns to get that to happen. Chemical digestion is again going to use enzymes to get that food into even smaller microscopic pieces. That will happen in your mouth. It starts when your saliva is secreted by your salivary glands. There are enzymes in your saliva that begin some of that chemical digestion. You will also have enzymes secreted in your stomach and your intestines. So this process happens from your mouth through your small intestine. Next we have absorption. That's going to be in your small and large intestine. There are blood vessels that are associated with your intestines, and that is going to allow the food to go across the wall from the small intestine, across the wall of the blood vessel and into your bloodstream. The same thing happens in your large intestine except with water. So that's going to be where you're reabsorbing any water. And then finally, our last stage is excretion, you getting rid of the waste that's left over, the undigested food in the form of feces, and that leaves your body through the anus. Next, we'll just take a look at your GI tract.
Your gastrointestinal tract is actually a tunnel that goes right through your body from mouth to anus. The nutrients from food that you have eaten have to be absorbed into your body through the walls of the GI tract. The first part of the GI tract is the oral cavity, where both mechanical and chemical digestion of food occurs. The teeth break down food into small pieces, and the tongue can form it into a ball, which is swallowed by the muscles of the swallow reflex. Salivary glands secrete liquid and enzymes in order to break down the food chemically. The esophagus is a tube of smooth muscle that contracts in a wave motion, pushing the food along its course. The food then enters the stomach at the esophageal gastric junction. The stomach churns to mix food up. This mechanical action of churning is innervated by parasympathetic nerves. When this process is completed, the pyloric sphincter will open. The duodenum is the first part of the small intestine, and a large amount of absorption occurs here. It is really the powerhouse of absorption. The duodenum engages in a negative feedback loop, meaning that it allows food to enter from the stomach when empty, and when the duodenum is full, it sends signals to the stomach not to open the pyloric sphincter. The entry of chyme into the duodenum also signals the liver and gallbladder to release bile, and it signals the pancreas to release its pancreatic enzymes. These help the digestion, absorption, and metabolism of food in the duodenum. The small intestine is the next area through which food travels. It is very long and has thousands of microvilli on its surface, creating a huge surface area. The appendix is at the start of the large bowel, or large intestine. The large intestine has an ascending, transverse, and descending part, ending in the sigmoid colon and then the rectum, which will store feces before they are excreted.
All right, and then our last system that we're going to look at today is going to be your nervous system. So that takes us through your first 5 systems out of the 11. We will do a brief overview of the others tomorrow. So we'll look through the remaining 6 tomorrow. The nervous system will be our first system that we cover after we get through the different kinds of tissue during this class. So with the nervous system, it's going to function to gather and interpret data from both inside of your body and outside of your body. And it includes your brain, your spinal cord, and your nerves. So there are physical subdivisions of your nervous system. The central nervous system is your brain and spinal cord, and then your peripheral nervous system would be all of your nerves. There are also functional divisions of your nervous system, and we'll get into that in a minute. With that division, so central nervous system, or the CNS, again, includes your brain and your spinal cord. And then outside of that, you have the peripheral nervous system, which is broken into somatic and autonomic nervous systems. And then autonomic can be broken down even further into sympathetic and parasympathetic. With the somatic nervous system, that's going to transmit sensory and motor signals to and from your central nervous system. So it communicates directly with the CNS. The autonomic nervous system is going to control the functions of your organs and your glands. And that again can be divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic from there. So the control of your glands and your organs needs to be able to happen under different conditions. The sympathetic nervous system would function under what we call fight or flight conditions, where there's an emergent situation. You need to figure out instinctually if it's something that you can face and survive, so you would fight in that case, or if your best chance of survival is flight and getting away from that situation. So under stressful conditions is going to be when you have your sympathetic nervous system acting. So for example, if you were faced with some kind of challenge or very stressful situation, your body is going to make some changes. So you don't really need digestion of your food to happen at that point in time. But you do need your breathing rate and your heart rate to increase to possibly help you get ready to fight or help you to get ready to get away. So they would control your organs under those kind of conditions. Parasympathetic is often referred to as rest and digest. So that's going to control your organs and glands under just normal everyday conditions. Next, if we take a look at neurons or nerve cells, you have, and if you've taken psychology, this is probably familiar to you, or hopefully you remember from Anatomy 1. With the neuron, you have a cell body right here. The nucleus of the cell would be in the cell body. There are dendrites. They're going to gather information and bring that into the cell body. That signal then needs to be transferred or transmitted all the way down this long part of the neuron. And that is called the axon. So that axon you can kind of think of like an electrical wire that is insulated by what we call the myelin sheath. You can see that enlarged right here. That's going to allow the conduction of that signal to happen smoothly. And at the end, you're going to have the synapse, where the signal is going to be transmitted to the next neuron. And that happens with neurotransmitters. Those are going to be chemicals that will carry that signal from one neuron to the next. One example would be adrenaline, which that would function from your sympathetic nervous system that we were just talking about under stressful conditions. Just to kind of wrap up a little bit here, we have another short video.
The nervous system is the control center of the human body. It is highly sophisticated, enabling the body to perceive, interpret, and respond to changes in its environment, while also facilitating cognitive processes such as learning, memory, and language. The nervous system controls voluntary processes, including the action of skeletal muscles, and involuntary processes, including circulation, respiration, and digestion. The nervous system can be divided both structurally and functionally. Structurally, the nervous system can be divided into the central and peripheral nervous systems. The central nervous system, CNS, comprises the brain and spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system, PNS, comprises all the nervous structures outside the CNS. The peripheral nervous system includes the cranial nerves, spinal nerves, sympathetic trunk, and splanchnic nerves. The peripheral nervous system connects the central nervous system to muscles, organs, and sensory receptors.
All right, so that kind of wraps us up for these first 5 systems. You are going to need to use this lesson if you haven't started the assignment for today already as we were going through the lesson, which was my suggestion to you. You're going to need to open the assignment for today and answer the questions that go with each of these systems and make sure you submit that. Again, tomorrow we'll look at the remaining 6 systems and that will get us on our way. Have a wonderful day.